Hi, I'm Mons, and a very warm welcome to The Music Mechanic. Today we'll be looking at the major scale. One of the reasons the major scale is so important is that it gives you the main set of notes and chords you will need to play a song in a major key. The way we operate in major will even influence how we do things in minor. To give you a flavor of what a major key and major key harmony sounds like, here is a short melody in C major. Even though it might seem like there's a lot going on here with a moving bass line and a number of chords, every note and every chord is taken exclusively from the C major scale. In this video, you will learn the major scale using only the note names from the musical alphabet, that is, only on the white keys of the piano keyboard, but also how to make major scales from different starting notes, for which you will need sharps and flats. Before tackling this, you will need to know note names without sharps or flats, and where to find them on a piano keyboard, guitar or bass, or all three, and also the difference between whole steps and half steps. If these things are unfamiliar to you, or you would like to review them, see my video about this linked in the description. We can easily find the major scale based on the musical alphabet. Here is the musical alphabet again, and here it is on the keyboard. Remember that the same notes are repeated as the pattern of white and black keys repeats. The musical alphabet, starting with the letter A, was established long before Western music started to become centered around the major and minor scales, and especially the major scale. So the major scale doesn't start from the same note. We get the major scale by using the same sequence of notes as in the musical alphabet, but starting on C rather than A, like this. Here's what it sounds like. Note that we're both starting on C and ending on C an octave above the starting pitch. We usually play and think of the scale in this way because stopping on the seventh note, B, gives us a kind of restless, unfinished impression. The B seems to pull upwards to the C, one half step above. The C gives us a sense of conclusion or arrival, of being the final destination, as it were. You'll often find that half steps seem to produce this sort of pull. Because of this, we often call the seventh note of the major scale the leading tone. The starting and finishing note, C in this case, is often called the tonic. Now that we know what notes go into the C major scale, here's another look at the clip of the short piece I played before. In addition to the old footage, with the melody, chords and bass line played on the guitar, I've now also added the melody played on the keyboard, so you can see clearly that the melody uses only the white keys. I've also added in the note names. Notice how the melody ends on the note C, giving the ending that sense of finality that we also saw when we completed the major scale by playing all the way up to C. Now, to discover the structure of the major scale, let's zoom in on the C major scale on the keyboard. We already know where the half steps are, which is between E and F, and between B and C. This means, of course, that the rest of the steps in the scale are whole steps. As you can see, the half steps split up the whole steps into a sequence of 2 and a sequence of 3 whole steps. Now we can see the pattern that makes up the major scale. 2 whole steps and a half step, followed by 3 whole steps and a half step, in ascending order. This is sort of the magical formula for a major scale, and will work to make a major scale from any starting note. So let's try out this magic formula to make some major scales other than the C major scale. First, we'll start from the note G and apply the formula. Let's go back to the keyboard. Here it is, with the notes of the musical alphabet written out, but from G to G this time. Remember that half steps between white keys occur only between B and C and between E and F. The distance between other adjacent white keys is always a whole step. Now the question is, does this give us the sequence of whole and half steps that we need to make a major scale from G? And if not, what adjustments do we have to make? First, we need 2 whole steps plus a half step. As you can see, that's already in place, so we don't have to adjust the musical alphabet here. That brings the scale up to the note C. Going on from there, we now need 3 whole steps followed by a half step. If we just follow the musical alphabet, meaning just the white keys, what we get is 2 whole steps, a half step, and a whole step. So here we have to change something. The solution is to raise the next to last note, the F, by a half step. To do that, we need to use the black key above, meaning immediately to the right of the F, in between the F and the G. This moves the note up a half step, producing the whole step we were looking for. This actually solves 2 problems, because at the same time, this note is just a half step away from the G, immediately to its right. This is the half step we need to complete the scale. We now have the complete sequence of notes that make up the G major scale. The new note, the black key, is still considered a sort of F, but now a raised one. We call it an F sharp, and we write it using a sharp sign like this, after the F. Listen to the sound of the G major scale. For comparison, here are the notes G to G on the white keys only. And here is the G major scale again. Let's try another one. This time, let's start from F. Here is the musical alphabet on the keyboard again, but starting and ending on F this time. And here's the formula again, 2.5 plus 3.5. In this case, the adjustment will be in another part of the scale, because if we go up from F, we get 3 whole steps right away. To fix this, so we get a half step after the first 2 whole steps, we have to lower the B by a half step. To do that, we have to use the black key immediately below, meaning to the left of the B, in between the B and the A. This moves the note a half step closer to the A, producing the half step we were looking for. Again, this solves 2 problems, since moving this note down also moves it a half step further away from the next note, the C, which gives us the first of the 3 whole steps we need to complete the scale. The final half step is already in place, since the scale ends with the white keys E and F. We now have the complete sequence of notes that make up the F major scale. The new note, the black key, is still considered a sort of B, but now a lowered one. We call it a B flat, and as you can see, we write it using a flat sign like this, after the B. Listen to the sound of the F major scale. For comparison, here are the notes F to F on the white keys only. And here is the F major scale again. You can see that when we make major scales from new starting notes, Although we're making adjustments to get the right sequence of whole steps and half steps, we are still using all the letters of the musical alphabet in sequence, with each letter being used only once. The difference is that some of the notes will have either a flat sign, as in the case of the note B flat in F major, or a sharp sign, as in the case of the note F sharp in G major, attached to them. This will be important both for scales and chords. If you've seen my video about note names, half steps and whole steps, you will already know how to place the notes of the musical alphabet on the guitar and the bass. This may be easiest to do on the A string of either instrument. As you've seen in this video, the musical alphabet and the C major scale share exactly the same notes. So if you know the musical alphabet on the A string, all you have to do to play the C major scale is to play exactly the same notes, but start from C rather than A. This corresponds exactly to playing the white keys of the piano keyboard from C to C. Here is the musical alphabet on the A string. A, open, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. And here's the C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now you may be wondering why I'm demonstrating the scale along the fingerboard like this on just one string. And you may have seen people play scales and scale patterns across the fingerboard like this. Now it is very important to be able to play scales like that, but to know the scales along the fingerboard on just one string at a time has a couple of distinct advantages. For one thing, it's much easier to see the structure of the scale in that way, at least initially. You remember the formula 2.5 plus 3.5, and you also remember, of course, that a half step on the guitar is a distance of 1 fret, and the distance of 2 frets is the same as a whole step. So the major scale will then start with 2 whole steps and a half step, and then 3 whole steps and a half step. The other thing is that you may have heard people complain about the difficulty of breaking out of the box, as it's sometimes called. And this is a problem that occurs when a player has learned to play some things in one area of the fingerboard, but then can't play in other areas. And knowing how to find the scale notes along each string will be a good first step in solving this difficulty. For playing the scale along each string, you can actually just transfer this pattern to any string and any starting note. Like the formula 2.5 plus 3.5, it will work from any starting note. This technique of moving patterns around the fingerboard is one of the great advantages of the guitar. It will apply to any scale, pattern or chord that doesn't contain open strings, which may require special consideration. So here's the G major scale. You will notice that I'm just transferring the pattern of the C major scale from the 5th string to the 6th string. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. Let's switch to bass for the F major scale. It will start here on the 1st fret where we find the F, and you'll notice that the F major scale is just the G major scale pattern moved down 2 frets. It goes like this: F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. In the next video, we'll start discussing chords and their building blocks, the intervals, and how these are formed from scales. I'll see you then.